Hello, listeners. It is Angela Arden, and welcome to another edition of Hollywood Stars, Articles, Stories, and More. I do want to say right here that although it seems as though I'm focusing only on singers, it just is a jag that the beginning of this endeavor has happened to take. I continue that jag today, and I'll tell you more on that. But first I want to mention that when I started this channel, it was because I used to live in Hollywood, and I love all things Hollywood. I'm talking about things like Schwab's drugstore, which is no longer there, to Charlie Chaplin and the Mary Pickford estate, where I did purchase one of her raw silk deep gray cocktail dresses made specifically for her, and there it was only one of it. I'm sure some of you listening don't even know who she is. I'd Google that if I were you. It's worth it. But then, of course, the amazing historical venues like the Roxy and the Rainbow Room and Pantages. From Malibu to Chinatown, Hollywood is so unique. And one of the venues that is there is a place called the Hollywood Bowl. And a concert that I saw there in 2013 was to feature an album called Born and Raised. And it starred and was put on by and performed by, beautifully I might add, the person that I have chosen as my next subject. He is an incredibly gifted, incredibly down-to-earth person, from what I can tell by his public material. He is an 8 Grammy Award-winning artist, and perhaps you've heard of him. His name is John Mayer. This article is from NPR, and I learned a little something before I read this that I'd like to share with you, is that NPR is the very first, or at least among the handful, possibly the very first interview that John ever gave, and the first people to really support young John Mayer, aspiring singer-songwriter way back in the day. And in one of his earlier interviews with NPR, he does mention that. They kind of have a little moment, which I thought was kind of cool. Okay, so this is from NPR.org, World Café, Essential and Emerging Artists. Title, John Mayer on World Café. Date, April 14th, 2017, 8:00 a.m. Eastern Time. John Mayer releases his new album, The Search for Everything, in its entirety Friday. When we spoke last week, he called it the chronicle of my discovering and reconciling pain, period, end quote. Mayer's been delivering the record in waves, 2 waves of 4 songs each, including the singles Love on the Weekend and Still Feel Like Your Man, have already come out. The look and sound are totally different than the last couple of albums Mayer put out. 2012's Born and Raised and 2013's Paradise Valley both had Laurel Canyon vibes, but The Search for Everything is a big, shiny return to pop from a man who's won 7 Grammys and sold more than 30 million records around the world. And my first aside, listeners, as of this date, of recording, which is Thursday, February 18th, 2021. As you know from my intro, that number has gone from 7 to 8 Grammy wins for the wonderful John Mayer. As long as I'm deciding, I want to repeat the second sentence of this article, which says, when we spoke last, he called it, quote, the chronicle of my discovering and reconciling pain, period, end quote. The first reason I went back and read it again is because it is just such a, or I should say, an overwhelming statement from John Mayer that I don't think that it should just be, brushed past quickly. But, sometimes pain is like that. We go through our lives and we don't want to deal with that aspect of life sometimes, especially if it's an overwhelming amount of pain, emotional pain, and so we put it someplace, within ourselves until we reach a time in our life when we just cannot fit anymore in that place where we put our pain. That place is bursting open. And I think that going through your pain and dealing with the pain, with your pain, is a person will find, as I'm sure John Mayer did, that it is exactly the opposite of the actual pain itself, because that feels like something you cannot face. It feels unsurmountable and uncontrollable, whereas deciding to, time, there's that saying, time heals, and to a point it does. It heals to a point of where you can go back and deal with stuff. And with, stuff as in issues and events that happened in your life. But to be able to look at the things that have caused you pain and to be honest with yourself about them, maybe to write about them or talk about them or whatever it is for you. In John's case, he could create songs about them. It is the other side of the pain. It is, you enter, people say a forest. I say, some place that you don't want to be, say the DMV or something. And you walk into this place, and that DMV represents pain. So you walk into this place, and, you deal with so much pain and so much pain and so much pain, and you have to get through it. And then you are at least the middle of the DMV. You have, paid those tickets, done that class, gotten that certificate for your window, whatever, your car's window, whatever it is, your tags, whatever it may be, and you are walking back out, and you walk past that middle of the room with a smile on your face, and you look at that sunny day just outside the door, and that is what dealing with pain can be. So I'm glad that he said this statement. When the journalist says, when we spoke last week, he called it, and then he said, the chronicle of my discovering and reconciling pain. So I hope that helped. For what it's worth, that was something that I wanted to share with you. And now I'll go back to the article. And sold more than 30 million records around the world. It's also beautiful, heartbreaking, and a stark reminder that even though Mayer's made headlines in the past couple of years for the celebrities he's dated or things he's said, He is first and foremost a talented musician. MAYER is currently on an epic tour to showcase the new record. Last Friday, he let World Café crash his dressing room at the Wells Fargo Center in Philly before his concert. You can listen to our full chat above and check out an edited transcript below. Let's head to that edited transcript, shall we? First question. This is a record that people are calling a pop record. John Mayer. My version of it, yeah. Second question. We haven't heard from you for a few years. What you offered before was a little rootsier, a little more Laurel Canyon-esque. Was this a deliberate choice to dive back into the pop machine? John Mayer. Yeah, I don't think that I took a break from it because it was a machine. I think I took a break from it because my ears get tired. Not just from recording a record, but from touring for so long. Question. So it was a deliberate decision to take a break from pop for a little while to begin with? John Mayer. I think it's a decision to take a break from that sound. I started listening to Bob Dylan, Crosby, Stills and Nash, and sometimes Young, and Neil Young, and the band. And I'm just nervy. And I listen to stuff, and I don't like the fact that I'm not doing it. It almost literally gets under my skin, and I can't stop moving, and I get antsy, and I go, let me at it. And so it's not exactly like, oh, I can't take the pop thing anymore. It's more like the excitement of, oh, let me at that first crack. I want the first crack. You know what I mean? I don't want the 7th album. I want the first album of its kind. Okay, I want to stop right here, and I want to add an aside, which is that I am a John Mayer enthusiast. I don't like to call myself a fan. I guess, basically what a fan these days is, but I am a modern Victorian, and I'll explain that one day. Words mean a lot to me, and the word fan comes from the word fanatic, and I am not fanatical about John Mayer or anyone. I wouldn't want anyone to be fanatical about me, and so that's why I don't like that word. But yeah, I have all of his CDs, and I have been listening. I started out with a couple of cassettes, actually. I did not at first listen to them as many people do when they discover someone in chronological order, but once I had heard quite a few of them, I did put start. It's okay, now let me just stop right here and go back and listen to these in chronological order, in chron order. And then, after I had started, that basically consists of room for squares forward. But then, once you've got all that, pretty well in your brain, just sort of stored there and categorized, and you can pretty much refer to it, and there's no more exploring or discovering left in those parts, although there is. You can go back and you can hear things you never heard before. His music is so rich. But once you're listening to that and you've got that as part of your library, your musical library, then, my friend, go to YouTube and type in John Mayer Rare. It's easy to remember because it rhymes. John Mayer, R-A-R-E. And you will find things like, I love to eat an orange with my friend John Mallincorange. And songs like who but John Mayer would decide to write a song rhyming orange with his friend John Malin-Corange? But John did it. John Mayer did it. And lots of songs where you can tell he had certain ideas, and some of those ideas come through in other songs that he has written. A lot of stuff from when he performed at Eddie's Attic, which I believe was in Georgia. And you're not going to find even the polished duets of him with other people. This is the stuff that he recorded, probably a lot of it even before he had a record deal, when he was fresh from Berkeley, probably in Georgia, trying stuff out, and just having a really good time. And you also, a lot of it, I would say the majority of it, is in club recordings. So you hear, the audience, like, they're with him. They are laughing with him, responding with him, he'll like stop and make an observation about somebody in the room or something that's going on. And it's just a good time. You're just in the club with, everybody, watching John Mayer do his thing. And I highly recommend it. Oh, also, here's an aside. If you hear chomping on like a hollow plastic sound in the background, I can't find my doggy's toy, so I gave her. She's half lab, half Ridgeback, and her name is Matilda. She's 1 year old, although she looks like she's 5 years old for any other dog, and she's darling, and I love her so much. I can't find her toy. So I gave her this. The only thing I could find was a plastic water bottle, which is, it's one of those sparkling soda, but really light drink bottles. It's empty. And she is loving it. She is tearing it up. It is keeping her quiet and, somewhat quiet and occupied. So, I don't know if you can hear that. But we will see. Just think of it as thunder. Thank you. So then when it came time to do the search for everything, it was like, hey, let's just make the best of what we've done so far. It's almost like our greatest hits, but not for the songs themselves, for sort of the process. This is the best of what I'm able to do as a writer. The next question. Was there one song that started it all where you were like, oh yeah, this is the inception of what this album is supposed to be? John Mayer. That's a very good question. There were a few. There were a couple of weeks in the very beginning of making this record that were astounding weeks, astounding writing weeks. The songs wouldn't stop. I started frightening myself. Each song just made me write another song. I had this run where I was like, this is about forgetting that we're making a product and just writing. I want to go so deep that it transcends the traditional contract of musician who is known, goes in studio and makes songs for his waiting public. I drilled so much deeper than that. It was like, there is no public right now. There is no musician. There is no star. There is no nothing. It was almost like there was no John Mayer. And then I realized from that point on, it better either make you hurt or make you feel something or make you move. But it can't just be music for music's sake at this point. So a lot of stuff didn't make it either because it wasn't true or it was a little bit too ambitious. I had one song on here that sounded like a Black Keys song, and it was awesome until I started to sing on it. And then I would listen back to it, and least anyone believe that I'm way into myself. I mean, I'm way into myself, but I don't love myself. But I'm literally into myself. What do you mean? The journalist asked. Well, like, I'm about myself. I'm self-centered. But I don't think everything I do is great, but I think about everything I do all of the time. Well, we all do, said the journalist, and she went on to say, we're all humans, but do you feel like you do that more? More? All the time. All I do is think about what I do. Horrible. It's a horrible existence. Okay, I'm going to stop right here with an aside of mine, because I want everybody that is listening to stop and think of what it must be like to be a human being who is a good kid, comes from a good home, great city in America, great town. Everything is absolutely hometown USA, okay? And he's of good stock, intelligent and talented beyond belief. So much so that he is obsessed from a very young age with all kinds of music. He just, like most people eat hamburgers, eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner with some snacks in between. That's how he eats music at this age. Eventually, he convinces his parents to let him go to Berklee College of Music, and then he spreads his wings to see where they will take him. And by the time he is 18, he is a phenomenal star on the horizon of the music scene, and by the time he is 20, he is a bona fide rock star. Like legend, early on, pretty much from the get-go. And he has a perfect run till he's about 33, when he hits a bump in the road. And, I have an aside for that too, and I have something to say about that, and it's not about John Mayer. But we'll leave that alone for now. And then, even after that, he gets hit with a granuloma, is what it's called, a granuloma, which is basically a very teeny, benign tumor in a person's throat. It happened to be in his throat. Now, there are two levels to this, and we'll deal with the most severe level last. So you are sitting in the leather seat. It looks like a pilot's leather seat on a Cessna small plane, and you are looking up at the doctor, who is a specialist in his field for granulomas, and possibly granulomas in the throat, for all we know. And this is your first appointment back since you had x-rays of your throat taken. And you're looking up at the doctor, and he or she is looking down at you, having, all of the x-rays spread out on those white board type windowy things that light up, so you can get a good understanding of the x-rays, that x-rays are there, and you don't really know how to read them, but the doctor does. And you have to have that much faith in he or she. And then the doctor tells you that they have looked at the x-rays, and definitely, beyond the shadow of a doubt, there is a granuloma there that must come out. And you are kind of shocked by this information, and you are quickly trying to absorb it and digest it. And then you say to the doctor, okay, doctor, what do you suggest that we do next? And the doctor says that you have to have it removed. And you say, okay, when do you think that we should have that done? And the doctor tells you immediately, we can do it right now. Okay, now, listener, if you would do me just the one kind favor of forgetting that you are listening to a story about John Mayer. Forget that you are listening to a story. Forget that you are listening. Be the person in the chair. So now, you are the person in the chair, just like John was. All I'm saying is that this had to be a sky-high nightmare, actually, as a human being, for him. That we all share this humanity. And all I'm asking you really to do is to put yourself in his shoes. Can you imagine what that must have been like? This is his, first of all, for him. The doctor is suggesting that right now we invade your body with scalpels. Oh, and also, this is the instrument that you rely upon for your livelihood. And at this point, you've never had a granuloma before. You've never had that. You don't even know, not only do you not know if you're going to be able to sing again, you don't even know if you're going to be able to speak again. This is not a book, and this is not a movie. This is what really happened to John Clayton Mayer. So then you are in this chair, and you are asking the doctor, so doctor, how do we do this right now? Are you going to give me anesthesia and put me under? And he says, or she says, oh, well, no, we can do it right now. And we would just use a needle, and we would just put the needle into your throat. And what you're hearing is they're going to take a long needle and jab it into your throat. And not just into your throat, but absolutely entirely through the front of your throat and into the throat cavity itself, and to reach the area of where the granuloma is, which I believe, I don't know for sure, but I believe, according to pictures that he shared with the public, that it was resting on the back side of his throat, or right near his vocal cords, certainly inside the throat. So you would have to go completely through that front wall of the throat, your throat. No anesthesia to get to the point of where they're going to shoot the area inside your throat with anesthesia. So now you are looking up at the doctor, and the needle is halfway through your throat, and you are in more pain than you have ever been in your life, and you are in more pain than you even understood was imaginable for you to be in. And you feel the tears well up in your eyes, and you feel the tears burst, which you were hoping would not happen, burst through over the walls of your, the outsides of your eyes and down your face. And still the needle has halfway more to go. And finally, it reaches the cavity of your throat and the area where the granuloma is, and you are still going through this. And how I am telling this is, I am sure, much faster than it actually happened. And now, after what seems like hours, they are shooting, they have reached the inside of your throat with the needle, and you can feel it, them injecting it into the area where the granuloma actually is. And as I think about this interview where he told about this, and I recall a little more clearly now, what it was that was in that needle, I believe, was Botox. And that was put into his throat in order to let the muscles just fall open so that they could actually go inside and operate to remove the granuloma. And he was told after this that he would have 3 days to speak, and then he would be silent. For, I'm not sure exactly how long, but I'm guessing like 2 or 3 months. What would you do? Who would you call? He called his dad. And he told his dad that he loved him. And his dad told him, "I love you, son." Well, we love you, John Clayton Mayer. And we love you through all of this pain that you went through. And we love you past, future, and especially present. Now there was one more point, a last point that I wanted to make, and it applies directly to what you just heard in the interview. About him saying he was self-centered, he thought about himself, he thought about everything that he did all the time, and it was a horrible existence. And if you don't really stop and think about that, you might think something completely else about him. But this is my thought on that. Go back to that 13-year-old little boy, okay? And all he knows, all you know, you're him now. Now you're him, listener. And I'm him. And we're him, okay? And all we know is that, all we know, no other reality for us, except there's not your reality, whatever it is. There's not my reality. There's just his reality only, which is that since I'm speaking as the 13-year-old boy. All I know is that since I was 13, all I know is that when I play guitar and sing, people like it. And I like people. And I love people. And people love when I play and sing. And now I'm 16. And I know more guitar and I sing a little better. And the love is greater. And the amount of people I know that ask me to play the guitar is more. And I love people and I like love. And I want to be loved like any other human being. I want to be loved. And I am driven by the desire to be loved. Just like you and just like me, John is driven by the desire to be loved. Or just like John, and just like me, you are driven by the desire to be loved. And that's okay. That's healthy. That's how we're made. We're humans, and that's how we're made. That's how we're hardwired. So now I'm 18, and I'm at Berklee College of Music, and I identify to the core with music. And music brings me great joy, and big and, underline this and in red, because this and is followed by, and it brings great joy to other people. So now I'm 18. I just got a record contract for what I do, which is just play guitar and sing. And this is all I know. Since I'm 13, 16, 18. Now I've got a record contract. This is all I know. Now I'm 20. Now I'm 18 to 20. And during that period of 18 to 20, I left Berkeley and I went to Georgia. And I performed at a place called Eddie's Attic. And I got this amazing electric response from human beings every night at Eddie's Attic. And this is my life, and this is my oxygen, and this is who and what I am. Now I'm 20 years old, and I am a bona fide rock star. And do you know that there are people in the world that call me a rock god? Of course, I know that I, Angela Arden, know that there's one God. But I do know that on this earth, there are people that call John Mayer to this day a rock god. What do you think that does to your ego, to be called a god? And they mean it. So from 20 to 33 years old, I have this pure, perfect existence as a rock star, and some call me a rock god. Okay? I have a tumble, and it is a rock in the road, and I think it's a bad thing. Me, who are you, and I as John Mayer, we think it's a bad thing. But I'm going to tell you something. The narrator here, Angela Arden, about that bump in the road, you know what I think that is? I think that that is a divine thing. And what I think that is I think that that is actual God, the God who created me, my Heavenly Father, saying to me, through my own actions and what I have allowed to become text, indelible ink on paper, millions, hundreds of millions of copies of this around the world. Don't even, forget about what's on the internet, which is maybe billions of copies of these words that I said. Because since I was 13 years old, I thought that I was supposed to be bigger than my body gives me credit for. And we all are, because we are spiritual and we are on a journey. And that is why God intervened with John Clayton Mayer. Because John Clayton Mayer possibly was not seeing women as he should. We know we saw maybe some late night talk shows that maybe say something about that. Having issues with alcohol and or other vices that if we weren't a rock star or a rock god, we might not think were best for us. But hey, that's not our reality. We're a rock star. We've got everything laid out on silver trays for us. Perhaps God didn't think so, actual Creator, God the Heavenly Father, who loves us so dearly, who loves us beyond our death, who loves us eternally, and sees this life as important as it is, and it is absolutely important, as a bat of an eyelash, compared to the eternal life that is ahead of us. Still, for us to get from there to over there, We need that bat of the eyelash. And without that moment in time to connect the past to the future, we would not exist. So in order to get John Clayton Mayer, God's precious child, from where he was now to his eternal future, there might have been a lesson that he needed to learn. And maybe that was a lesson of respecting those that we love. Not only those that we speak of, but those who hear us speak. For to understand that we are valuable to God comes with the responsibility of knowing that not only do we matter, but we influence those around us, those that we love, greatly. I think that's what this was about. I think it was positive. I think it was a gift from God in the form of a lesson. And I think that it was about John Clayton Mayer's eternal life. Not just his life here as a rock star on this earth right here and now, but his eternal life and some lesson that he needed to teach himself about himself. Because he is loved greatly by God. Please find the rest of this interview on part 2 of John Mayer, NPR interview. Thank you. And now about that quote, that final quote, which is, quote, "And least anyone believe that I'm way into myself. I mean, I'm way into myself. But I don't mean love myself, but I'm literally into myself," end quote. About that, now that I have laid the groundwork, I want you to understand one thing. The only reason that this beautiful human being says that he is into himself, and he means, but I'm literally into myself, is because that he understands that being into himself is being into that which, since he was 13 years old, he has known has brought joy to everyone. So, the only way John Mayer knows to bring joy to everyone, this little boy inside this adult man's body, and we all have that inner child, is to understand that to bring joy to everyone, he must be into himself, aware of himself, all of the time. This is not something that anyone else probably gets except for John. And it was simply my honor to explain that to you, dear listener. And if I didn't mention it before, let me mention it again right now. The rest of this interview, along with my asides, is available on part 2 of John Mayer.